More than a week now, a Russian sub has been patrolling in international waters off the east coast of the U.S. Should we be worried, and why is it there? Joining me now live here in the studio is Eric Wertheim, author of the U.S. Naval Institute Guide to Combat Fleets of the World. And Eric, great to see you. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Glad to be here.
So, why is it there, and should we be worried?
Well, I don't think we need to do much more than take notice. We shouldn't really be worried about this, because this has a number of reasons for the Russians doing this. The first is, of course, for training and to flex their military muscle to show that they're still capable of doing this. Even though this was very common during the Cold War, it's not so common anymore. It's been probably at least 10 years since the Russians have appeared off the U.S. East Coast. It's important to remember they are in international waters. They're not in U.S. waters. They're over 200 miles is what I've heard. And the other thing to remember is these are not ballistic missile submarines. These are not submarines that launch nuclear missiles at cities. These are hunter-killer type submarines that are designed to collect intelligence, to attack other ships and submarines in the event of hostilities, but mostly what they're doing from a domestic point of view is collecting information and flexing their muscle.
Hey, I will go back to that point in a moment, but I just have to ask you, given the strain in the U.S.-Russian relationship over the past couple years, does that have anything to do with the fact that the Russians feel the need to place a sub just off our coast?
Certainly, they want to show that they're not irrelevant. But I think we have to remember that in addition to the military and political reasons, there are economic reasons here. One of the most important elements of the Russian economy is its arms sales. And we have to look at the fact that, for instance, some of its biggest clients are China and Russia, or China and India. And those countries are now looking inwards, building their own equipment a lot more than they used to. And Russia has a very important role in selling this, so they want to make sure that China and India see, and other clients, that their equipment is still working despite numerous setbacks and some failures that they've had in recent years.
How much does it have to do with their burgeoning relationship with Venezuela?
Well, we saw that last year, a tour of Russian ships visiting Venezuela. I think that's cause for concern, but a lot of it is very politically motivated, a lot of that part, and I think that Venezuela is a sensitive issue right now because it is close to other troubled areas, but the issue of them trying to influence other events in South America is a cause for concern. I think that a lot of this is to show potential friends of Russia that they can be counted on as a growing power still. They are still in power.
What are the rules, the international rules for countries patrolling off the coast of one another? I mean, as you mentioned, during the Cold War, this was pretty common, and I'm guessing the U.S. Navy patrols international waters off the coast of various countries.
Yes, absolutely. One of the most important roles for submarines is to collect intelligence so that in the event of hostilities they would be able to act, but also collecting intelligence like monitoring North Korean shipping so that we know if they're smuggling weapons. So those types of things are very common. The miles, staying very far off the coast like the Russians did is really not a problem. It's acceptable behavior, and it's done by the U.S. and allied nations all the time because, you know, it just so happens it's off the coast, but they're not within, for instance, a 12-mile limit or things like that.
All right, Eric Wertheim, this is a fascinating subject. Thanks so much for coming in tonight and sharing your perspective with us.
Always glad to be here.
Appreciate it.